It was a day like any other, or so he thought. As the world around him buzzed with daily routines, James Bennett, a billionaire businessman, stood in front of his wife's grave. The cool autumn breeze swept through the cemetery, a somber reminder of the loss that had defined his life for the past year. His wife, Lily, had passed away unexpectedly from a heart condition, leaving him with nothing but memories and a deep, unshakable sense of emptiness. James had everything: money, power, and influence, but without Lily by his side, life felt like an endless void. He came to her grave every week to speak to her as if she could hear him. Today, however, was different. Something unusual caught his eye. There near the tombstone were two little girls. Their clothes were ragged and their faces were streaked with dirt. They were huddled together, whispering quietly, seemingly unaware of the world around them. James hesitated at first, wondering if he should approach them. But then he noticed something that made his heart skip a beat. These were no ordinary girls. They were twins, no older than 5, and their eyes, despite their rough appearance, held a strange familiarity. It took him a moment to gather his thoughts, but then the realization hit him like a bolt of lightning. These girls in their tattered clothes were standing next to Lily's grave. How could that be? James Bennett stood frozen, his eyes fixed on the two young girls standing by his wife's grave. His mind spun with disbelief, and yet a deep, almost instinctual feeling told him that this moment was somehow tied to his wife's memory, the woman he had loved deeply. It had been a year since Lily's sudden passing, and each visit to her grave had felt like another painful reminder of the life he had lost. The air was always cold here, even in the summer, as though nature itself mourned her absence. But today everything felt different. There was an unfamiliar presence, an unexpected interruption to his grief-stricken routine. The two girls, no more than 5 years old, stood in front of the gravestone, their tiny faces covered in dust and dirt. Their clothes were torn, worn thin by the hardships of a life they likely didn't choose. Despite the visible signs of neglect, their eyes held a strange calmness, as if they had come to this place for a reason they themselves couldn't yet fully understand. James was a man of logic, accustomed to solving problems with precision and cold reasoning. But this moment challenged every shred of rational thought he had. He took a cautious step forward, his mind racing for answers as his feet moved of their own accord. Something about the girls felt familiar. Something about them stirred a memory he could not yet grasp. His voice, when it came, was tentative. "Hey there," he said softly, trying not to startle them. Kneeling down, he lowered himself to their level, desperate for some explanation. "What are you two doing here?" The older twin, wearing a jacket far too large for her tiny frame, slowly turned her head toward him. Her eyes were large, brown, and brimming with a quiet confusion. She didn't speak right away, and for a long moment the only sound was the wind rustling the leaves around them. Then, almost in a whisper, she finally spoke. "We're waiting for our mommy," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Her twin sister, standing silently beside her, nodded solemnly in agreement, her eyes fixed on the gravestone as if she knew exactly where she was. James's heart clenched in his chest. The words hit him like a ton of bricks, each syllable reverberating in his mind with the force of a question he wasn't sure he could even ask. His stomach turned and his breath hitched in his throat. The girl's words seemed impossible, yet somehow they felt undeniable. His pulse quickened and his mind raced. Mommy? His wife had passed away so suddenly, and while he had lost himself in grief, he had never thought about the possibility of children. Lily had always wanted to adopt, but they had never discussed starting a family of their own. How could these girls know anything about her? About him? Taking a deep breath, he forced his voice to steady itself. He had to know more. He had to understand. "Your mommy? You know her name?" he asked, his voice trembling with a mix of uncertainty and hope. The older twin, her face solemn and unreadable, looked up at him with wide eyes. There was no fear in them, just a quiet certainty. She pointed a small, trembling finger toward the gravestone. "That's where our mommy is," she said, her voice filled with the innocence of a child who had no reason to doubt what she was saying. "She's here waiting for us." The words hung in the air like a heavy fog, thick with meaning. James's heart stopped for a moment and a chill ran down his spine. He couldn't understand it. How could these girls possibly know? His wife had never mentioned children to him, never said anything about having a family. His mind flashed back to their time together, the late-night talks, their dreams of traveling, of building a life together. There had never been any talk of little girls. It had always just been the two of them. Yet here were these two children, standing before her grave, claiming that Lily was their mother. Before he could process what he had just heard, the other twin, the one who had remained silent up until now, spoke. Her voice was softer but no less firm. "Mommy told us we'd find her here," she said. "She said someone would take care of us." James's mind reeled as the world seemed to shift beneath him. What did she mean by that? Someone would take care of them? How could that be possible? It was a statement that should have made no sense, and yet, the more he thought about it, the more it gnawed at him. The words felt like a heavy truth, one that he was not yet ready to face. 100 questions flooded his mind. Could this be some strange coincidence? Was it possible that these girls were somehow connected to Lily, or was this just a bizarre, improbable encounter? Could there be more to this story than he could comprehend? At that moment, he felt an overwhelming sense of urgency. He needed answers. Answers that made sense of the cryptic words these children had spoken. He had to know what this all meant. And then, as if by some invisible force, he knew what he had to do. He had to take care of these girls, not just for their sake, but for Lily's. A wave of realization washed over him, as his grief turned into something else, something more powerful. It was as if his wife's spirit, her memory, had come to him in the form of these two children, guiding him toward something he hadn't been prepared for. Something that had always been part of their story, waiting to unfold. As the wind rustled the trees around them, James realized that this moment, as strange and surreal as it was, would forever change his life. He didn't know what the future held, but he now knew one thing for certain. He had to take care of Mia and Maya. He had to honor Lily's memory, and in doing so, he would find a purpose he never expected. James gently placed the remaining piece of bread in front of the twins, his hands shaking slightly as he watched them take it eagerly. The girls, Mia and Maya, hungrily devoured the food, their faces still streaked with dirt but their eyes slowly beginning to soften. As they ate, James leaned back against the bench, trying to process the whirlwind of emotions that had taken over him in the past few minutes. The twins had introduced themselves with quiet voices, their small hands trembling as they spoke. They were just children, but their eyes told a story of a life far beyond their years, one filled with loss, confusion, and uncertainty. They were survivors. James had to know more. So, James began softly, trying to keep his voice steady. "What happened to your mother?" Mia, the older twin, paused for a moment before answering. She looked down at her half-finished bread, her small fingers tearing at the edges. "She died when we were babies," Mia said quietly, her voice shaky but firm. "In a car accident. We don't remember her, but we were told she loved us a lot." James felt a pang in his chest. His heart sank as he realized just how much these girls had been through. To lose their mother at such a young age, to never even get the chance to know her, was a tragedy in itself. But the pain didn't stop there. As Mia continued, James could hear the sorrow in her voice, the underlying heaviness that came from a life of abandonment. "We went to foster care after she died," Maya added, her voice barely above a whisper. "But the homes were never nice. The people there, they weren't good to us. We had to run away." Maya's words hit James like a blow to the gut. He couldn't imagine what these little girls had endured. The horror of being placed in an environment that wasn't safe, of being treated poorly by the very people who were supposed to care for them. He could barely fathom it. The idea that they had run away, left to fend for themselves on the streets, broke something inside him. "Where did you go after you ran away?" James asked, his voice thick with concern. "Everywhere," Mia said with a sad smile. "We stayed in parks, under bridges, anywhere we could sleep without someone telling us to go away. It was hard, but we stayed together. Mommy always told us that as long as we had each other, we'd be okay." James's eyes stung with the unshed tears that he had been holding back. These little girls, who should have been playing with dolls or laughing with friends, had instead been living on the edge, surviving from day to day. The idea that Lily, his Lily, had left them these instructions even after her passing made his heart ache. His wife had been a fierce advocate for children's rights, constantly working with organizations to ensure that children in need had a chance at a better life. She had always dreamed of adopting children, of giving them the home and love that they deserved. But now, in the wake of her untimely death, these girls were standing at her grave, believing her to be their mother. James felt a profound sense of responsibility weigh on him. It wasn't just a random coincidence. This was fate, a final request from Lily herself. But before he could wrap his mind around the enormity of it all, Maya's small voice broke through his thoughts. "Mommy left us a letter," Maya said, her eyes filling with tears. "It's for you." Maya pulled a crumpled envelope from her coat pocket and handed it to James. His hands trembled as he took it, the weight of the moment sinking in. The envelope was old, worn from being carried around for who knows how long, but the handwriting on the front was unmistakable. It was Lily's handwriting. His name was written in the same flowing script he had seen on countless cards and letters over the years, each word infused with love and affection. James's breath caught in his throat as he slowly tore open the envelope, his heart pounding. Inside was a folded piece of paper, yellowed with age but still legible. He unfolded it carefully, feeling the weight of Lily's words settle in his chest. "My dearest James, if you're reading this, then I'm gone. Please know that I loved you with all my heart, and I never wanted to leave you. But there is something you must do for me. There are 2 little girls, Mia and Maya, who need you. They are my daughters, my flesh and blood. Take care of them, James. They are the future we never had. I trust you to do what's right." Tears blurred his vision as he read the letter, each word like a punch to his heart. Lily had written this knowing she might not survive, knowing that James would have to carry this burden alone. It was a final request, a final duty. His wife had been a woman of great compassion, and her love for these girls, whom she had never even had the chance to raise, had transcended death itself. James's hands shook as he folded the letter back and looked at the 2 girls. They were staring up at him with such innocent hope, their eyes wide with expectation. They had been through so much, and now they were looking to him for protection, for guidance, for the love that they had been deprived of for so long. For a long moment, James sat there overwhelmed by the enormity of it all. How could he do this? He had never planned for this responsibility, never even imagined that one day he would be a father to 2 little girls. But then, as he looked into their eyes, the same eyes that held the hope of a future they had never known, something inside him shifted. He felt his heart open, felt the promise of a new beginning. These girls were now his responsibility. He had to honor Lily's memory. He had to protect them, care for them, and give them the life they deserved, the life Lily had always dreamed of. "I'll take care of you," James whispered, his voice breaking. "I promise." In that moment, something profound changed within James. The pain of losing Lily would never go away, but in these girls he saw the continuation of her spirit, the embodiment of everything she had ever stood for. And so, with a heart full of grief and love, he made a vow to be the father these girls needed, to honor Lily's memory, and to give them the life they had always deserved. This was the future he would build now, together with Mia and Maya. James Bennett stood at the edge of the grave, his eyes fixed on the tombstone of the woman he had loved so deeply. The words on the stone, Lily Bennett, beloved wife, a light to all, seemed to blur before his eyes as the weight of the past year pressed down on him. It had been a year since Lily's sudden death, a year filled with unbearable grief, confusion, and loss. He had always thought that the world was something he could control. As a self-made billionaire, he had built a life of wealth and influence, surrounded by luxury, success, and power. But none of that could fill the empty space Lily had left behind. Standing at her grave now, James couldn't help but feel lost. All the things that once seemed so important, money, business, prestige, now felt utterly meaningless without her. He had everything that money could buy, but none of it could bring her back. He had spent countless hours at the cemetery talking to her, praying for her, wishing for some sort of sign. Today, though, as the chill of the autumn air swept over him, James finally realized something. The purpose he had been missing, something deeper than his financial accomplishments, was standing in front of him in the form of 2 little girls. Mia and Maya, these twins, no older than 5, had walked into his life in the most unexpected and mysterious way. The day before, they had appeared at Lily's grave claiming her as their mother. And while it seemed incomprehensible, James felt an undeniable connection between them, a strange sense that they were the key to his healing. In the months that followed, James threw himself into caring for the girls. He enrolled them in school, ensuring they had access to education and a safe environment where they could flourish. He gave them a home, a spacious house in the countryside far from the hustle of the city. It was a home full of love, warmth, and security. He made sure they had everything they needed: clothes, toys, books, and most importantly, the love and support that every child deserved. But he also made sure to teach them about Lily, to help them understand who their mother was, even if they had never had the chance to meet her. Every evening, as the girls sat at the dinner table with him, he would tell them stories about their mother, stories of her kindness, her compassion, her passion for helping others. He would show them photographs of Lily, smiling and happy, and would remind them every day how much she had loved them. It became a ritual, a way for James to keep her memory alive and to pass it on to the girls. Though the pain of losing Lily never completely subsided, these moments brought him some semblance of peace, a sense that he was honoring her in the best way possible. It was in these moments of connection, of building this new family, that James began to heal. The girls who had known nothing but hardship and pain started to smile more. Mia, the older twin, began to show a newfound sense of confidence, and Maya, though still quiet, had a spark of curiosity in her eyes that James hadn't seen before. They were beginning to flourish in their new life, and as they did, James found himself healing in ways he had never imagined. He spent days playing with them, taking them to the park, attending parent-teacher conferences, and helping with their homework. His life, once consumed by business meetings, investment portfolios, and global ventures, was now filled with laughter, bedtime stories, and the joy of watching these two little girls grow. One day, as they were walking through the garden, Mia tugged on his sleeve, her little face serious. "Daddy," she said, using the word for the first time, "Mommy used to say we would be okay as long as we were together." I think she meant we were meant to be here, with you. James's heart swelled with emotion as he looked down at her. In that simple moment, he realized that the pain of losing Lily would never completely go away. There would always be a part of him that missed her, that longed for her presence. But he had found a new sense of purpose, one that had been hidden, waiting for him to discover it. These girls, these twins, were his new purpose. And in caring for them, in giving them the love and stability they had always needed, James found a path forward. He wasn't just honoring Lily's memory. He was creating a future for these girls, a future that was bright, full of love, and free from the pain they had known. He was building a new family, one that was shaped by love, resilience, and hope. And in doing so, he was finding a way to heal the deep, unspoken wounds that had plagued him since Lily's death. Over time, James found that life's greatest gifts often come when you least expect them. The pain of losing Lily was something he would carry with him forever, but now he had a reason to keep moving forward. His life was no longer about the wealth he had accumulated or the success he had achieved. It was about giving these girls a chance at happiness, a chance to experience the love and security that had been denied to them for so long. And as the years passed, James's love for Mia and Maya only deepened. He watched them grow into smart, confident young women, full of compassion and empathy, traits he knew they had inherited from Lily. They excelled in school, made friends, and began to shape their own dreams for the future. And through it all, James remained by their side, their biggest supporter and their guiding light. In the end, James's journey with Mia and Maya was not just a story of tragedy. It was a story of hope, redemption, and the power of love. It was a story that reminded him and everyone who heard it that sometimes life's most unexpected moments shape us in the most profound ways. Though he had lost Lily, he had gained so much more than he ever could have imagined. Two little girls who had shown him what it truly meant to love, to heal, and to live for something greater than oneself. And in that, James found peace, a peace that came not from the wealth he had amassed, but from the love he had given and received, from the family he had built, and the legacy of his wife that would live on through Mia and Maya. If you enjoyed this story of love, loss, and hope, don't forget to give us a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Share this video with someone who might need a reminder that sometimes the most unexpected moments are the ones that shape our lives the most. And if you want more heartwarming stories like this, turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.